And good evening to one and all present in this fabulous gathering. I would like to introduce the first speaker of this lovely evening, Dr. Kusum Sanju Arora. She is an assistant professor in English at HPU Regional Center, Dhamsala. She is a PhD scholar from the most famous Himachal Pradesh University at Simla. She has an amazing teaching experience of 16 years. Dr. Sanju's area of specialization is about the history and culture in diasporic writing. Her areas of interest is also no less interesting. She has an inclination towards the concepts of culture and nation. She is passionate about serving the society and keeps on participating in various social activities. As it could be expected of a scholar, she loves to read and write. But not just that, she has an amazing hand. She has also writes a poetry and short stories, both in Hindi and English. Dr. Sanju, on behalf of the management of Mohammed Sadat College of Arts and Science and the most benevolent trust of Cap Camrin, I welcome you heartily and invite you to take over the session. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you so very much, Dr. Hanan, for such beautiful introduction. I hope I
Yes,
am
ma'am.
audible to
Very much
everybody.
audible.
Yes. Okay. So let me start my PPT presentation and then I'll move ahead. It will take just a minute. Uh, is it visible to everybody?
No, ma'am.
My,
No, ma'am.
just a minute. Is it visible right now?
No, ma'am. Yes, we are seeing them now.
Okay, okay. So first of all, uh, it is a privilege and an opportunity to share my presentation with all the eminent intellectuals and scholars present here. As I belong to literature, you may find some literary impact on it. So, as you can see that my today's topic is planning a thesis, aims and objectives. So first of all, before we directly jump to the definition of thesis, let's see a little bit that what do we understand by research. So research is a careful, systematic, patient study and investigation in some field of knowledge undertaken to discover of established facts or principles. Research usually means finding something new, a substance, a formula, or an invention. Research is the backbone of various branches of knowledge. It paves the way to refine, polish, and grow us as a society. We can take a look at these pictures. These are the pictures of Aristotle, Shakespeare, and Sigmund Freud. These names are applicable and universal even today. No doubt that they are the phenomenal contributors in the different branches of knowledge. But we cannot forget here the laborious and meticulous efforts of our researchers who have kept them alive. No research or no study is complete without these few names. And this is the contribution of meticulous and regular research on these phenomenal theorists and theories. Now, let's have a look on types of researches. There are so many, but I have selected a few. First of all, we have fundamental research. Fundamental research is the very basic or pure research, which is mainly connected or concerned with the improvement of scientific knowledge. And this kind of research is done to establish new theories. Then the second one is applied research. Applied research is to know more about certain real life problems. It focuses on the application of natural science principles on practical difficulties on practical basis, as well as enhancing innovations. For example, a company may hire an applied researcher to look into the best way of hiring its employees. So whatever the real life problems are faced sometimes by institutions or sometimes by group of people, applied research is applicable here. Further, we have literary research. Literary research is critical scholarly analysis of literature. Individual wanting to study certain aspects of the piece of literature, such as certain themes, piece of imagery, types of characterization, concept-based ideas, etc. Literary researches mostly are debatable, and there may be no specific ideas. They may be comparative, they may be related to any other established ideas. So these kind of critical thinking is based on literary research. Then further we have analytical research. In analytical research, it is a specific type of research that invokes critical thinking skills and evaluation of facts and information related to the research being conducted. For example, a particular type of drug or vaccine is innovated, and then an analytical research is done to know that what is the impact of that particular drug on a community. So this kind of research is analytical research. Then we have correlational research. Correlational research is the investigation of relationship between different variables. When we try to find out certain kind of correlation between two variables, that is correlational research. And then experimental research, as the term itself is connotative, that experimental means when we conduct certain kind of experiments to prove something or to establish a new theory or an innovation. So that kind of researches are called experimental research. So let's see further. Now we have known a little bit about research. Let's move to what thesis is, as our topic is planning a thesis. So as per dictionary definition, a thesis is a proposition stated or put forward for consideration, especially one to be discussed and proved and to be maintained against objections. So whatever we are establishing, whatever it may be an issue, it may be an idea, it may be a theory, it may be an innovation. So whatever we are trying to establish, the thesis needs a proper discussion over it. Your idea should be proved, and it has to be maintained against all the objections which are made. So this is the definition of thesis. So let's move ahead. How to plan a thesis. See, whatever we plan in our life as day to day, on the day-to-day basis, a kind of research keeps on happening on our subconscious level. For example, we have to buy a car or we have to plan a holiday. Everything needs research. So whenever we are planning a holiday or trying to buy a car, anything, it first of all, it happens in our mind, in our thinking process. So thesis in your mind. So when we plan to write a thesis, first of all, we have certain ideas which are to be kept in our mind. First of all, we must have a incisive with our thinking. We have a keen observation and incisiveness when we think about the content and the context which we are going to make in our thesis. Second point is always write down your ideas in your notebook. So this is very important. This seems to be very simple, but this is a very powerful tool because our mind authentically keeps on generating certain ideas, and we need to write down those ideas and make a logbook. We may get these ideas somewhere from discussions, somewhere from library, somewhere from internet. So this is the best idea that we should keep on writing, because these ideas will become the framework of our writing. Next point is don't get excessively influenced by previous researchers. Again, this is a powerful thing. Why? Because whenever we do literature review, we study so many related researches which have already happened. People have already researched on the topic or the idea. So when we go through that, sometimes we tend to excessively influenced by the researches which are being already done. So we need to be cautious regarding this. Be very realistic with your aims and objectives. So this is a very important part of our thesis. When we set our aims and objectives, we need to be very realistic. And later, further in our presentation, we'll discuss more about aims and objectives. Next point we have is that we need to set specific timeline goals and keep checking your motivation and commitment. Because sometimes when we begin with something, we are very much motivated, we are so much enthusiastic about the work, but gradually what keeps on happening, that gradually our commitment level or motivation, it falls into pieces. So first of all, specifically, we need to set the timeline goals and keep our motivation intact. Next point is depend on your preliminary study. It gives direct access to the subject of research. This is the first-hand information we are collecting about the writing we are going to make. So this is the preliminary study. For example, if we have to write a thesis on Shakespeare or Wordsworth, we need to study, we need to read the preliminary or the writings by Shakespeare or writings by Wordsworth, because this will give us direct access to the writer. Now, a little bit more about preliminary reading and research. Primary sources are to be read, consulted, and analyzed thoroughly, because this is going to become the treasure and an authenticated version of your ideas when you are going to write the thesis. So your primary sources are to be read, they should be consulted, and they should be analyzed thoroughly. The next point is narrowing the topic by finding out how much information is relevant. So in our preliminary reading, sometimes we get so much lost in so much information that we forget that we need to narrow the relevant part of the information. So this is the part of the process that when you have studied and consulted and analyzed all the primary sources, now you need to keep on gradually narrowing the topic so that you can get the relevant information. So once it is done, next point is getting an idea of which specific aspect of your topic needs detailed reading. So we need to know that there will be certain, you have now picked up the relevant material. You have reached to that point that all the irrelevant material is discarded, and now you have relevant material. But there will be certain areas of your writing that will need some detailed reading. So this is the part of the process where you need to go for detailed reading. And next is your secondary sources. Now you need to go to the secondary sources for further reading and further information. So next part and very important part of planning a thesis is selecting the topic. So when we are selecting the topic, the best topic is that which originates from your reading. The topic should be interesting, specific, and relevant in terms of the concept of the thesis. So, the best topic, because we have done all the preliminary reading, and it will generate the ideas regarding to the best topic. Because you cannot pick the topic from somewhere else. You cannot pick the topic from some library, from some internet or Google, because your own reading will generate the topic itself. And how the topic should be? The topic should be interesting to you, interesting to you as well as interesting to your reader. It should be very specific and relevant. Relevant in what sense? Relevant in terms of concept which you are going to discuss in your thesis. Next point is your proposed topic should answer your research questions. What kind of questions should be answered in the topic? For example, what interests you about it? That when you are you find a particular kind of topic interesting, what is of your interest? Why it interests you? Who is affected by the topic? Suppose you are going to do a certain kind of study under this topic. Either a group of people or society at large, or what kind of people will get affected by this study? Where is your topic important? So what is the importance of your topic in context to what? In context to real life problem of people, or in context to adding something in the established theories, or what? So these kind of questions should be answered when we are selecting the topic. Further is narrow down the broad topic to a specific topic that is suitable for research. So sometimes we take a topic which is too broad, and when we start writing under that topic, we have such a abundance of information that we don't find that which relevant material is to be selected. And sometimes, as a result of this, our research or our thesis does not go deeper. So here we need to do that, we need to narrow it down from broader aspect to the specific one. So after selecting the topic, now we need to focus at the aims and objectives of the thesis. And this is very, very important part, because this will pave the way for a research and to conceptualize the thesis. So let's have a look that what do we understand by aims. Research aim, point one here is research aim describes the main goal or purpose of your research. Why I am doing this research, right? Next point is maybe it differently stated or propagated in different areas. So it may be that when we are doing research in literature or in social sciences or in sciences, your research aim may be propagated in a different way, but it has to be. Third point is focus on the wider possibilities. That what are the wider possibilities of your aim, of your research? For example, that we are doing the research that what is the impact of mobile phones on our culture. So when we are writing a thesis on this kind of research, this is a real life thing which we are facing in a day-to-day basis. But it has a wider possibility. It is going to make an influence on a wider number of people or society at large. So these kind of aims are to be set. Next point here is research aim needs to answer this question. Which question is to be answered? What your study will answer, or why your research is needed. So this is the important point, because when we get the answer of this question regarding to your research, it becomes very clear why my research is needed, why this study is required in whatever the field you are doing that research. So this is about the aims of the thesis. Then we have objectives. So objectives, when aim answers why is this research required, objective answers how are you going to do it. So this is the difference between the two. Your aim answers that what is the wider and larger impact of your research, so why your research is required. And when you get the answer that yes, my research is needed for this purpose, objective answers how you are going to achieve it. So your objectives are specific, relevant, and time bound. Suppose you are picking up different issues through which you will be reaching the aim of your research. So that is why your objectives should be very specific, should be relevant and time. Next point here is that research objectives take the form of chapters in a thesis. So it is in a literary research. When we are doing researches in literature, so mostly the objectives take the form of chapters in our thesis. So this is a quick revision, I must say, or the difference between the aims and objectives. Aim says what to achieve, and objective says how to achieve. Aims are broad, they have broader approaches, and objectives have specific approaches. Our aims have long-term outcomes, and objectives have short-term outcomes. Aims propose in a short paragraph. When you are writing the thesis in a small paragraph, you propose the aim that this will be the wider aspect of my research. But objectives are to be elaborated and they are to be established through your chapters. So this is the simple difference between the aims and objectives of your study. So there are not only do's to ponder over. Sometimes there are some don'ts that are also to be pondered. And what are the don'ts? The first thing is not to make the research aim too broad. So because when the research aims are very much broad and wide, sometimes we do not find the exact way to keep up with the aim or to achieve that thing. So this is the first thing which is not to be done. Second point here is not to make research objective too ambitious. So our research objectives should not be as ambitious. Then when we are trying to establish them, it becomes difficult for us because they are very much ambitious. Next is formulating repetitive research objectives. So when you are setting up the objectives for your research, you should avoid repetition. So these are the few don'ts which we need to ponder over. Now, these are the skills. When you are structuring your thesis, these are certain skills we can use. And this can make your thesis or your writing more efficient. The first one is analysis. So now you have collected all the information, primary and secondary, all the sources are consulted and analyzed, and you have collected all the information. The first part is analysis. You need to do a thorough analysis. And what do we do in analysis? We select and we differentiate. Because when we have too much of the material, we need to differentiate and select. And the next point is to synthesize it. We need to integrate and combine whatever the information we have collected in the first part. So when we have integrated the material, the next part, important part, is comprehension. We have to comprehend. Because the moment we understand, suppose we have collected all the material, but that material is to be used in context to your proposed idea. How you are going to use that material according to the concept of your thesis. So here we need comprehension. We need to understand it thoroughly and distinguish it, that how to comprehend the whole material. Then we have knowledge. In knowledge, we need to define and classify. Define and classify here means that the material through the primary material, preliminary study, the primary material which you have collected, and the secondary sources which you have consulted. Now you have to define your concept in context to that material. And you need to classify it because you have to establish your fact. You have to establish your idea, whatever the new idea you are going to propagate through your thesis. So these are few skills which we can follow when we are writing a thesis. So now thesis structure. First part of the thesis structure is introduction. So when we are writing the introduction, mostly this is the first chapter of the thesis, and introduction provides enough information to the reader to know the purpose of the study. So in this chapter only, in this introduction part only, we propose the aim, that why we are going to do this study, and the information that what is already done. In second part, we see that in introduction, the topic is described in terms of content and concept. This section proposes the aim of the study and its usefulness in society. So this is the part, introductory part, which is covering all this. But apart from that, it is also discussing the background of your study. Suppose you are doing a study on romance by Wordsworth or the romantic poetry by Wordsworth. So before you begin with the romantic poetry of Wordsworth, you need to write a thorough informatory background, that how romantic poetry came into being in English literature, and who were the poets and the writers earlier to Wordsworth who had written romantic poetry. So this is the background which we need to set up, so that you need to tell the reader that already this has been done and how my study is adding into the already established knowledge. So this is the introductory part, or the introduction, which should go like this. So next is literature review. So in this section, you collect the data from books, magazines, newspapers, and other sources. So here you do literature review. This needs thorough reading of all the material you have offline, online, and you should specify. Second part, as says here, organize the material to cover specific problems. That whatever the material is available to you, and you have done all the literature review, after studying that much, now how that material is going to cover the specific problem which you have propagated in your thesis. So this is how the literature review helps you. In this section, you must have a statement how this old material is related and relevant to your study. Here, when all the background is discussed, and all those people who have already researched over the concept you are going to make, so how that material which is already discussed, the material or the theories which are already established, how that material, how those theories are relevant and are related to your topic or your study. So this is literature review. Further, we have methodology. So methodology is the wider application or approach which we use while writing the thesis. We pick a few research designs from methodology, and research design refers to overall strategy to integrate all the components of the study. So now you have collected all the materials and everything is done. Which approach are you going to apply? How you will design your research, and all the integrated material, how you will compile that. That is the part of methodology. It should be described and specified that how you are going to use it. Describe the sampling of subjects used in the study. Discuss how the validity and reliability will be established. Suppose you are doing research in psychology. So the way you are doing the data analysis, or you are collecting the information or sampling, You need to focus on the validity and reliability of your data analysis and collection of sampling. Suppose you are doing research in literature. So here, which approach you are going to use? Suppose you are going to use historical approach or psychological approach. How are you going to make a comparative study, or are you going to study the over the period of histories, over the periods of history, that how this research is already been, this kind of research is already been done, and how you are going to add up into the idea. So this is the part methodology. Now we have discussion. So the discussion section is where you interpret and explain your results. So in this part, you have done all the preliminary and secondary work. Now here you are going to discuss your idea with the help of all the sources you have consulted. You elaborate on and evaluate the research findings and discuss the significance and implications of your research. Now, in the discussion part, you have already elaborated and evaluated the research findings or the concept or some idea which you are going to establish. So, here you will discuss the significance. What is the significance of your idea? And what is the implication? How this idea will be applicable wherever you have targeted it to be or directed it to be. So this is the part of this discussion. Next point is you revisit your research questions or hypotheses and incorporate relevant points to address these. So here in this part of your thesis, you readdress and revisit your research question or hypothesis or the proposal which you have made. Now here all the relevant point and readdressing those research questions will prove and establish the new idea, the new theory, the new innovation. So here you will put or you will incorporate the relevant points and readdress the issues, readdress the questions or the hypotheses. So next is conclusion. Conclusion part is it synthesizes all the major points. Now, whatever the discussion you have done, whatever you have discussed in your objectives or in your chapters, you are going to synthesize all these major points in your conclusion. Next important point of conclusion is that what is the quick takeaway from your work? That you have studied a certain kind of part of culture. So after going through your thesis, the reader, what should be a quick takeaway for the reader? Information of the study's main contributors. So here you are imparting the information about the contribution of your study, that how your study is going to contribute in this field of knowledge or that branch of knowledge. Then the present recommendations for future research. This is also a very important and integral part of the conclusion, because your study is the outcome or maybe a recommended part of some previous studies. Somebody may have recommended that these kind of researches, suppose there is a research on human behavior. So whatever the research you are doing, that is not a final research. One thing or the else is there to research further. So if you are making some recommendations that what kind of research is to be followed, that is the recommendation which is to be made in this part, conclusion part. And then we have reference list. So reference list, it includes full details of all the sources that you have cited. And citations should be consistently and correctly formatted. So again, here your logbook will help you. Because from the very first day when you thought of writing the thesis, you started writing the information, the important quotations or the contributions to the people, or maybe secondary sources. So when you keep on writing in your logbook that the citation from the very first day, it comes to your rescue this time. So when you are writing the reference list, you need to check your logbook, and this will be a great help to you. So let's look at this. Research is a tool for building knowledge, facilitating learning, understanding issues, sees opportunities, and provides nourishment to mind. This is a beautiful definition of research. So all the knowledge, all the established knowledge, and all the researchers who are tirelessly working uh, today in the contemporary scenario and will be working further, they are facilitating learning. And this beautiful process of learning, it is enhanced, and they keep on enlightening the minds. They keep on understanding new issues. This is the way to seize new opportunities and provides nourishment to the mind. So it nourishes our mind, it enlightens our heart. And again, research is a great contribution in human existence to grow us more, to polish us, to refine us as a humanity, as a human being. Thank you so very much. So if you have any questions, kindly you can ask.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, your lecture was very great. Ma'am, I want to ask if we go for, if I want to write thesis in literature, in English literature, can I incorporate various approaches like a historical approach, psychoanalytical approach, or any other approach? Will it be a comparative study then?
See, ma'am, when we talk about the comparative study, it is a comparison not between approaches, but it is a comparison between sometimes authors, sometimes different kind of ideas. It may be, for example, you can take example as I quoted in the presentation as well, that suppose we have to write a thesis on that romantic aspect of words. So if you have to make a comparative study, you can compare that romantic aspect or romantic poetry by Shakespeare in comparison to romantic poetry by Wordsworth. And another thing you're asking that we can use psychoanalytical and historical approach together. So I think we cannot and we should not do that. Why? Because in historical approach itself is too wide to cover. And on the other hand, psychoanalytical approach is altogether related to characters. So one is addressing the character analysis, and another is addressing the work over the periods of history. So instead of taking many approaches altogether, we should focus on one approach. And comparative study is between ideas and between authors. That is what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Any other question?
Yes, Dr. Kusum, good afternoon from Ghana. My name is Harun Ibrahim. I'm a medical practitioner from Ghana. I have some couple of questions to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you for your excellent presentation. You are very good at what you do. Yes, your presentation is very meticulous, well outlined, well understood. You gave us some types of research, fundamental research, you explained it, applied research,
Yeah.
you explained it, literary research, you explain analytical, correlational, and experimental. And then you made mention that you are a literary researcher, right?
Yeah.
Good. I'm currently working on a research article, but I would like to share with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to find out an angle from your end and with your experience. The title of my research, I deduced from this very topic that we are discussing, that is from this conference. Yeah, the title of my research article, I'm working on it currently, is International Law on Ethical Consideration, comma, the need for a global blueprint to safeguard the ethical principles of researchers in the research community. Please, did you get the title? Should I repeat it again?
Yeah. Once you repeat it, please.
Yes. So the title of my research article, I'm currently working on it. International Law on Ethical Consideration. International Law on Ethical Consideration, comma. Colon. The need for a global blueprint to safeguard the ethical principles of researchers and the research community. Did you get it?
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And my keywords here are international law, ethical consideration, global blueprint, ethical principles, researchers, and research community. From this very topic I gave you now, and from the angle and your experience that you are coming from, can you propose an aim and objective from this very topic I gave you?
Mr. Ibrahim, thank you for your
Yeah.
question. And I congratulate you that you are researching on this such good topic. When we are talking about the ethics of research community, you are asking me uh, to guide you, to direct you some objectives related to this. When we are discussing about altogether a new topic and to set objectives, I guess we need to do some preliminary study related to it. This is a new topic for me, so I would suggest you that kindly, if you can mail me your topic, definitely I'll go through and I'll study it a little bit, and then I can suggest you well. Right?
All right.
Yeah.
Well
My email
understood.
ID is there. You can mail me your topic, and I'll definitely go through and I'll just I can do my bit.
Well understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. In your presentation, in the course of your presentation, you said selecting the topic, and then you stressed on the topic should be interesting.
Yeah.
One, the topic should be specific. The topic should be relevant in terms of the concept of the thesis, right?
Yeah.
That is under selection of the topic. Good. Please, in terms of the topic being interesting, should it be subjective or objective to the researcher?
Okay. So you are asking that when we are selecting a topic, and I said that
Yes.
it should be interesting, should it be
Yes.
subjective or objective? So
Yes.
see, we cannot do a watertight compartmentalization that it should be completely subjective because it is of my interest. Your research or your topic cannot be only of your interest, because when we are saying that it should be relevant, it becomes objective, because it will become relevant to a particular group of people you are directing the study towards. As you are doing your study, your research, obviously the topic should be interesting to you as well, so that it keep up your motivation level till the end. Point one. Second is that it should be relevant, so it becomes it will not be relevant and fascinating for the reader till the moment it does not appeal to them. So it should appeal to the reader as well. One thing is interest and another thing is relevance. Many of the time, the things which are relevant to us, we those things appeal to us as well. So when I'm making the point that interesting as well as relevant, so it is subjective because it is interesting to me, and it is objective because it becomes relevant and interesting to the reader as well when they'll be going through the topic or the study.
Yeah,
This
the
is what
reason why I asked you, all right, thank you. The reason why I asked you, should it be objective or subjective, is you made mention of selecting the topic or
yeah,
selecting the topic. Yes.
yes,
So, for example, you are my supervisor,
yeah,
and I'm a student. Yes.
mm,
And taking into consideration the topic that I just gave you, my intended research article that I want to, I brought
yeah,
this topic to you, and then you told me that, Ibrahim, I don't think this topic is interesting. Can you look at another topic? How can you convince me as a supervisor, as a student, and as a supervisor? I bring you a topic, and you are telling me that the topic is not interesting. How can you
okay,
convince me as a student to change the topic?
okay. See, as I mentioned, when we are selecting a topic, the best topics originate from your preliminary reading, from your study. The more you read, whatever you are going to study, whatever you are going to research on, more you read about that the topic will originate from your reading. So, as your supervisor, as me and you, we too are much familiar with and acquainted with the subject. So, when I'll discuss as a supervisor with you, maybe uh, I will draw your attention towards the relevance, that how relevant it should be, and interesting not only for you as a researcher, but how it should be interesting to the people at large. It should keep up their attention till the end, so that it should be as fascinating, so that people should get the urge to go through it and to open it and to study it, that what you are going to research. So maybe when I'll go through in the deep information or the deep reading, preliminary reading, which you have done, which as a supervisor I have done, I will make these kind of points to convince you that let's make it a bit more specific. Let's make it a more narrow and in context to your reading which you have done. So I can make a correlation between the two and try to convince you that you should change it or you should narrow it and you should make it more specific or relevant. This is what I feel.
Okay, Doc, thank you very much for your answer. Another question is, during your presentation and the thesis in your mind,
Yeah.
you brought out, you highlighted, bulleted some points which I want to mention to you. Don't
Yeah.
get excessively influenced by previous researchers, where excessively influence is underlined. I quite remember when you were presenting, you stressed on it that don't get excessively influenced by previous researchers. It's good. From the angle you're coming from, it's very relative, because we are about 104 participants and over on this platform. Everybody with his research interests, everybody with his cultural background, everybody with his upbringing, which influences even your thoughts or your thought process. So if you say don't get excessively influenced by previous researchers, and I am working on a research where I am looking for literature reviews, then I come in contact with this very nice research where I want to use some of the literature reviews.
Okay.
Please, I want to find out from you, how
Can
relative
you
should
please?
it be that
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, how relative should it be that I shouldn't get excessively influenced by the previous research?
Okay.
Because what
See,
my mind get attracted to and my eye get attracted to is what I follow.
okay. This is very interesting question, Mr. Abraham. So, see, before going to that point that this is in our mind, let's go a little bit behind where I mentioned that what is research. Research is fine, simple for a layman also. Simple meaning of research is trying to find out something new. Yes or no? So when we are trying to find out something new, so all the researches which are already done by somebody, you may get the help of those researchers. You may get the enriching of ideas, enlightening for your ideas, but your idea which you are going to propagate in your study or thesis and the research which you are going to do should be very authentic and new. Because if it is not new and you are under the influence of certain researches or certain concepts or ideas which are already being discussed by somebody else or many of the others else, so it means that your your original idea, it should be altogether new, because if it is new only then it will add to the existed knowledge, established knowledge. If it is under the influence of all the researches which are already done, then it is just a part of that, it is not something new into it. So that is why I said that accessibly, look at the word accessibly. No doubt that we have influence over certain kind of researches which are already done, only then we have created certain kind of ideas, we have propagated ideas. But influence does not mean that excessively you are under the influence of the researches which are previously done and your new idea does not get the chance to flourish in your research. So that is why I use this thing, and this is something really practical, that we should not be excessively influenced by the earlier researchers. That is what I meant to say.
All right, Doc. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ma'am, good evening,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Good evening.
Your presentation was excellent, ma'am. I have a
Thank
question,
you.
ma'am.
Yeah.
When I compare, I'm doing research in English literature. When I compare two authors, how much I should be careful, or what are the precautions I should take when I'm comparing one aspect of these two writers?
Okay. See, when we are doing comparative researches, no doubt the influence of the author will remain on our research throughout. But as I quoted in one of my example, I'm giving you example as you are the student of English literature, you will very well understand this. That suppose we have to do a research that uh, romantic aspect of poetry by William Shakespeare in comparison to romantic aspect of poetry by William Wordsworth. But here, both the romantic poets you are researching, but your idea, your new authentic idea is that Wordsworth's approach of romance was in nature, but on the other hand, Shakespeare's approach of romance was altogether worldly. So this is the difference. Suppose you found, this is the idea. On this idea, you want to do the research. Now you have to thoroughly go through the poetry by Shakespeare and simultaneously the poetry by Wordsworth. And you have to establish the point that Wordsworthian romance is altogether different from Shakespearean romance. So no doubt the impact of the authors will remain on your research because that is a comparative study. But the idea is that you have to come up with new idea, your thought, your proposal, and your propagated idea is that how different, how Wordsworthian romance is different from Shakespearean romance. So this is how we can do comparative research. I hope it is relevant to you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No, if I'm reading two authors, I one author catches me a lot. So
Hmm.
I should not feel that one author is superior than the other one. So in that aspect
I
only
guess,
I asked.
okay. I guess you should focus on your idea or your proposal, that what you are going to research, what you are going to study through it. It is not about the author. Maybe that one author is your favorite and another is not, but when in comparative study, your idea is more important.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Kusum ma'am. Good evening.
Anji, good evening. Yes.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Sangeeta. Your lecture was too crisp, I would like to say. Yeah, it
Thank you
was
so
too
much.
good and
Thank you.
very short but informative.
Thank you.
Then I have a general question. Like in previous time, we used to do dissertation in MPhil and PhD, right? But nowadays in many universities, dissertation is the part of masters also, MA.
Yeah.
Then there will be some difference in the chapters. Like in MPhil, we used to do 4 chapters. In PhD, 7 or 8. Like you discussed introduction, literature review, methodology, discussion. Then what should be the level in masters? 3 chapters, 4 chapters, or somewhat less, or like the same of MPhil that we used to do.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the question. See, when we are writing a dissertation according to the degree we are going to award it. So in MPhil, the scale of how much material we are covering is less than our doctoral degree.
Yes, ma'am.
It, yes, in comparison to PhD or in MPhil or in masters. So as I'm teaching masters for so long, so when the dissertation is written in masters, uh, we give them the liberty to write 3 chapters sometimes, and sometimes cover less material, because sometimes they are taking up only one author. Sometimes they are researching on only few issues related to one critic or one poet. So that is why the scale of the material, it is less than MPhil and PhD. So
Yes.
accordingly, the framing of the thesis and the scale of the thesis, it becomes less than the in comparison to MPhil and PhD.
Yes, ma'am. That was my question only. Because level of the students at masters is not up to that level that MPhil and PhD. So the
Yeah.
scale can be narrowed down. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That's only I wanted to ask. Thank you so much for the clarifications. Thank you. Good night.
Any other question? So I would like to extend my heartfelt and sincere gratitude to dear Dr. Shailaja Vasudev ma'am. She just offered me this opportunity. So, and all the patient listeners over here, and all the intellectuals and scholars, and for your precious views which you have given me uh, regarding my presentation. So I'm very thankful to everyone here, and especially Dr. Shailaja Vasudev ma'am. Thank you so very much.